Okay, the time is almost gone on 8:30. We're about to start, so please make yourself comfortable. And we've got 175 participants. So Rūta, an amazing audience, and I'm not going to waste too much time. So I want to just welcome everyone. It's 8:30, and welcome to Limud Live with the South African Jewish Report, and to the session with Rūta Vanagaitė, which is the destruction of Lithuanian Jewry, 80 years of silence. And as I've mentioned a couple of times in the last minute, I think a topic that really resonates with so many South African Jews, given the strong connection between South African Jewry and Lithuania. As always, I'm sure many of you are Limud veterans, but just to re-emphasize some of the values of Limud, specifically respect for opinions, respect for everyone in the audience, arguments for the sake of heaven, and we're here to build connections. And as you can see, a very strong connection between our topic tonight and so many of you. The chat room is open, and I can see you're all familiar with your chat room. So everyone is going to be put onto mute automatically. So please, as Rūta is talking, if there are topics that are familiar, if you want to ask questions, if you've got a comment to make, please post it up in the chat rooms. I will be monitoring the questions. So Rūta will get through her presentation, and then we will endeavor to get through as many questions as we can in the 10 or 15 minutes. That will take us up to 9:15. Please turn on your cameras. It's nice to have some visuals for the presenter, so that we're not just talking to a blank screen. You will be on mute, but please put on your cameras, use your chats, and just interact and comment. And if it brings back memories or something that you can recall from both your life in Lithuania, if you're first generation, or something that your grandparents or parents spoke about, give us a thumbs up or a clapping of the hands on the bottom right in the reaction screen, and please interact with us as much as possible. But you're not here to listen to me. We're really here to listen about the destruction of Lithuanian Jewry, 80 years of silence, and we're deeply honored to have with us someone who I know that the Limud South African delegation heard, I think, Rūta, in 2017. They heard you speak. They've been endeavoring to get you either to South Africa or to present at Limud. And so they're really excited 3 years later to have you presenting here at Limud Live with the Jewish Report. Rūta is a journalist and author who co-wrote a book, Our People, with Nazi-hunter Efraim Zuroff. And in her session tonight, she will talk about the silence of Lithuania on the destruction of the Jews. Rūta, we are deeply honored to have you here tonight on Limud Live. And so without further ado, I'm going to hand over the presentation to you. And thank you so much for taking the time from Vilnius in Lithuania to join us and talk and give us your story about the Jews.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be talking to you. I'm very happy that so many people join my session, and also very happy for those of you, for all of you, because your ancestors left Lithuania way before all the horrible things start happening in my country. I'm not Jewish. I don't have a drop of Jewish blood. And I would like to speak about this 80 years of silence, starting from 60 years of silence about the Jews in my own life. Like, I was born in Soviet Union, in Soviet Lithuania, and during my education and during my young years and adult years, we Lithuanians, we didn't care about the Holocaust. In Soviet times, there was no word as Holocaust. Nobody was speaking about it. We knew that, like, some Soviet citizens were murdered, and of course, some fascists murdered them. So there is no Holocaust education. There was no Holocaust education in the Soviet times. And my children, now they are 25 and 32, They were studying in independent Lithuania, and I would say that they know not much more than I was taught or knew in the Soviet times. Like we have in Lithuania, we have 1.5 lesson about the Holocaust. Sometimes 1, sometimes 1.5, and everybody knows the same story. There were, a lot of Jews living in Lithuania. Then Nazis came and murdered those Jews, and then we switch our topic to the righteous among the nations, to those people who are saving the Jews, because Lithuania was so famous, saving so many Jews. But we stay silent about the figure, how many Jews were murdered in Lithuania. Anyway, but like for 60 years, I lived in total ignorance and indifference. And I knew that one of my grandfather was was deported by the Soviets, and then I discovered that he was like, when Germans came to Lithuania, he was part of some kind of Nazi commission, and he made a list in Kalarskas, in the middle of Lithuania, in Kalarska, a list of Soviet activists, and those Soviet activists were shot. But okay, so maybe though they were Jews, maybe not Jews, it didn't interest me, it didn't interest my relatives, didn't interest my friends. He was my hero because he was deported to Gulag and he was murdered. There was a husband of my aunt who was chief of police in famous city of Ponevich in 41. From 41 to 44. And my family knew. Then in 44, he fled to America and lived in a nice house with mango tree in Florida, and he died. And during Soviet times, he was sending us jeans and Beatle records. In the difficult times, me and my sister, we had jeans from our wonderful husband of my aunt. So he was also a hero for me. And there was something about the Jews. He was shooting Jews, so he was commanding. We talked about it, but we were not interested. My parents were not interested to tell us. I was not interested to ask. And I'm a very typical product of Lithuania. I'm not the least educated person in this country. And I didn't know anything. And my children don't know anything. We never went to Ponar. If we would go to Ponar, we maybe would go skiing or walking our dog, because the tragedy of the Jews was not a tragedy of native Lithuanians. And it stayed this way, unfortunately. They were those people, not our people. Our tragedy, like deportation, was the biggest. So this was a silence of my 60 years. And only when I was 60, I got into one lecture by a Lithuanian historian by accident. When I learned, in 45 minutes, I learned the truth about the Holocaust. That there was not just Nazis, there were a lot of Lithuanians who were participating, and that the Holocaust happened not only at the pits. 200,000 Jews were murdered, and 3/4 of them in half a year, from July 41 till November 41. How can a bunch of degenerates or some Nazis kill 200,000 people? And it's not about only killing. It's about making the list. It's about putting them in one place. It's about guarding them. It's about selecting the place where to murder the Jews. It's about convoying them. It's about digging the pits, it's about covering the pits, and it's about distributing the property. I was listening to this lecture and I was shocked. I said, what? What property? Lithuanians, they are Catholic people, they're nice people. They wouldn't take any property. But then you start giving an examples like 200,000 people. It means 50,000 homes. It means beds, it means bed linen, it means toys, it means everything. Germans didn't take it. They didn't take the houses. They didn't take tables, beds, and then I was sitting and thinking, I have a clock in my house. I can show you maybe wherever it is. You see, on the wall. It's from my grandmother who was living in Ponevich in 41. And then I realized that such a big amount of people were part of this horrible tragedy. And then I started investigating. I started when I was already 61 or 62. I started 2015. And the more I read, I went to the archives to read interrogation protocols of the murderers. I worked for 1 year from morning till night in the archives, reading Lithuanian books of Lithuanian historians who wrote truth, but very dry, and reading the testimonies of the murderers. And what I read shocked me enormously. And you know what shocked me? The silence of the murder. You know that we have 234 places of mass murder in Lithuania. Actually, everybody can drive or walk to mass murder site within half an hour. 234. And all these places are in the forest, in the vicinity of the city, because Jews, most of them, they were walked to the pits. I mean, nobody would drive them anywhere. And then there's a forest, and then normally it's like a little hill, and the pit was dug behind the hill. So people wouldn't citizens of different cities or villages wouldn't hear the screaming, they wouldn't hear the shooting. So the murder of Lithuanian Jews happened with a silent consent of a society in general, of local people. Of course they knew, but everybody was silent about it. And you know what the most horrible thing? That the church was silent. There was no reaction, because Lithuanians were Catholics, they were deeply religious at that time, 41, 44. The church took a decision not to interfere. If they would have told people, don't shoot, is a sin to shoot, they wouldn't. Many people, many Lithuanians wouldn't have done it. And another horrible image of the silence was for me, like in the testimonies of witnesses, those witnesses who saw the murders, Lithuanian people, or who were living, who were interviewed by Soviets, you know, after the war, all of them said that Earth was moving a week after the murder. I couldn't believe it. How the hell? I mean, who can believe such a story that, you know, people are murdered, then they cover it with earth, and Earth is moving? Yes, it was moving. I tell you one thing which shocked me. When so many people are murdered, there's a lot of gases, and the Earth was moving. So that was about the time of the murders. And another thing that shocked me is that those people who were killing the Jews, they were not sadists, they were not monsters, they were just ordinary countryside men who went into this murder battalions without knowing that they will be ordered to murder innocent people. They wanted, you know, when Germans came, everybody thought, okay, Germany gonna give Lithuanian independence. So people joined the battalions because they thought, okay, we're gonna be independent, beginning of Lithuanian independent army, and we're gonna serve our country because we love our country, we hate Soviets. And those people, they were like 26 battalions in Lithuania. In each of them were from 500 to 700 people. Half of these battalions were sent to murder the Jews. And they were in shock. They didn't know they had to shoot the women or had to shoot children, but they did it. I always thought that they were forced to, that every Lithuanian who would go and shoot the Jew had a German behind him who would shoot him if he wouldn't obey the orders. No, there is not a single documented case in the whole Lithuania that somebody would refuse to shoot a Jew, an innocent person, and would have been shot himself. There is a gossip about one person in Kaunas. So why people did it? Why did they do it? It means, you know, there is all of them said that we became like robots. Something changed in their head that they didn't think about the Jews as people. And every one of them had a justification for themselves. Like, if the God allows such atrocity, if my government is sending me to this battalion, if my commander gives me a rifle and sets me to shoot, I'm a small person. What can I do? If I wouldn't shoot that Jew, my neighbor would shoot, another soldier would shoot. So they felt innocent, and they had explanation for themselves why they are doing this. So I was in such a shock that a normal human being can do such a horrifying thing and doesn't feel innocent, doesn't feel guilty. There is a very, very shocking example I can tell you. Like a young guy named Antanas Šėgžda, he was studying in Tauragė in Teachers Academy in 41. And he was like the university or the academy year was over, and in June he needed some work for summer, like 41, end of June. And somebody told, you can go register yourself, and they will send you to register Jewish property. So you went there to register Jewish property. You know, where is property coming from? Everybody knows what is coming from, but I mean, he just registered, and he could take something because he wouldn't register everything. He would take, like a watch or something. So he got a little bit better off. And then he was sent to convoy the Jews to the work. So he took a big group of Jews with other members of his school or whatever, and he was taking them, convoying them somewhere to the work. And then he saw there's no work, there's a pit. And those Jews are being shot by other soldiers. And then he realized that, okay, those bad people are shooting the Jews. They are so bad, but he is good, he doesn't shoot them. So he started coming to every Jew and saying, you know what, you're gonna die anyway. And I am a good person, so give me your money, give me your watch. You don't need it anymore. And they gave him watches, they gave him money. And after the war, he bought a violin and went to play violin in the State Theater of Šiauliai. How people are adaptive, how they are sliding into the crime. And if those people could have gone into that crime, it means it can be repeated. We are not any better. And so while studying this book, I realized that I have to go to mass murder sites, not to 234. Of course, I couldn't do it. I have to go at least to 20, 30, 50. I'm afraid of the forest. I'm getting lost very easily. I don't know how to change a tire. And those forests are really deep. And those places of mass murder, some are easy to find. We have some official places where, officials go once a year, Holocaust Memorial Day, one in Kaunas, one in Vilnius. We have the Jewish violin player. So we bring some flowers and that's it until next year. But there are another 232 places where nobody's going. And I met Efraim Zuroff, Nazi-hunter. And I realized that I should ask him, maybe he should go with me. Because some of his relatives are from Lithuania, and one of his relatives was murdered in Ponar, and he agreed. And we got into my car, which he called Shoah Mobile, and we went to mass murder sites for tens. Maybe we visited 50 of them. We visited 10 in Belarus because Belarusian Lithuanian battalion was also brought there to murder Soviet activists in Belarus. And that where those people were Jews. 15,000 Jews were murdered in Belarus by Lithuanian battalion. And what happened? We started going into little villages or little houses next to mass murder sites and asking people, old people, do you remember? Do you know? Did you see? Nobody has interviewed those people before us. And they remember. You imagine, like it was like 2 years ago, I believe no murderers are alive anymore because in order to be serve in the battalion, you had to be at least 18 years old. But those people who were kids at that time, 7, 8 years old, 6 years old in 41, Now they are 80, they're 82, 85. They saw it, they remember, and they were crying. Then I saw another Lithuania. I saw Lithuania of old people who saw it, and they remember every detail. They remember what color was the sky on that night when the Jews were shot. They remember that some of the people climbed out of the graves and were half alive, half dead, and came crawling into their houses. But those people gonna die. Who gonna collect the testimonies? I collected as much as I could. We were traveling with Efraim, but people wouldn't agree to be filmed. They wouldn't agree to be photographed. They wouldn't agree to give their names. It was so scary for them that they preferred to stay silent and only tell to me because they knew me. Was like a famous writer, whatever. So they trusted me and they told me their stories. I was deeply affected by all this. And the sad thing was that when I decided to write this book with Efraim, I started writing chapter after chapter after chapter. I asked many of my friends, my children, my relatives, would you read this book? Everybody said no. And the explanation was very different. Why are you writing about the Jews? We Lithuanians have our own tragedies. Let Jews write about the Jews. Are Jews paying you? Maybe you are Jewish. So I knew that nobody going to read this book, but we wrote it. And this book became a national bestseller immediately because it was written in a very emotional way in a very simple language. So they published 2,000 copies and soon it was sold in 24 hours. And then the book reached the circulation of 19,000 copies. So it means 100,000 people in small Lithuania read it. And a lot of people said, no, we're not going to read it. It's all lies. Jews paid her, Russians paid her, she's Jewish. We don't agree to read this book. And to make this long story short, you know what? Holocaust is like a black hole. Once you touch it, you cannot get out. You still think you want to visit this mass grave. You want to go there. You want to know more. You want to defend the victims. And what happened, I mean, I won't go into the detail, but like 2 years later, I said something, a very nasty comment about one of Lithuanian national leaders. And next day, I was told by my media that my publisher is removing all my books, including this book about the Holocaust. This is this book about the Holocaust, removing from bookshelves. So now I have 27,000 books in my garage, and no bookstore will take them. And that time it was not pleasant to be on the street because people started attacking me, spitting on me that I'm a Jewish agent, I'm paid by the Jews, I sold my country. I don't want to go into it, but it was very unpleasant. And then I left for Israel for 3 years. My plan was to finish with this book. Once I did something for the victims, I did the book, I wrote the truth, and the book made this subject, an important subject, very important for people who hated it and for people who really cared about this tragedy. But I thought after me, maybe young writers will start writing, maybe young theater directors, young movie directors, because I opened the dam. It should have become a general subject for everyone. It didn't happen because when my books were removed, so the silence of Lithuania remained. People remained silent. And then I had to do something about it. And I did something about it. So we just a month ago, I self-published another book about the Holocaust with the most famous and the best Holocaust historian in the world. He is called Christoph Dickmann. And they asked him simple questions and he gave me the answers. And the picture is even gloomier and even more tragic than we thought. To give you just a couple of examples, I asked him about the German occupation of Lithuania because Lithuania was occupied by Germans, right? 4 years was Nazi occupation, so that's why Lithuanian Jews were murdered. You know what was the German occupation? We had from 600 to 900 Germans in Lithuania during all these years. We had civil servants in the Nazi administration. They were like a couple of hundred. In each city, we had from 6 to 9 Germans and thousands of Lithuanians. So servility of my country, that was so shocking for me, that they decided to serve the Nazis without being forced into it. And, or say the biggest crime of my people, and not really persecution of the Jews, not because like a couple of thousand participated, of course 20,000 civil servants participated also, but the robbery of Jewish property. In summer 41, every village, every little town had a commission of redistribution Jewish property. So it was not like robbery that everybody would take anything. No, it was everything was written, everything was guarded, and the commission would distribute it. First, of course, something went to Germans, then went for Lithuanian administration, and then auctions of Jewish property. And Jews were still alive in small ghettos, and people were dragging horses and carriages with stuff, dishes, tablecloths, bed linen, shoes, everything. And when you think that maybe in every Lithuanian house, if we have now something antique or something old, nice furniture, or Zinger sewing machine or whatever, where did it come from? That's why we don't want to talk about it. That's why we don't want to hear it, because Holocaust is present in every house. So this book came out, and there was a total silence about it. No bookstore will take it. This is, I show you the first book. Now it came in English. It came in English in March. It's called Our People. It's available on Amazon. And the second book we wrote in English with Christoph Dickman, because he doesn't speak Lithuanian. We wrote in English, but it's a question of principle to publish first in Lithuania. No publisher will take it, no bookstore will take it, but it is there. How did it happen? And there you see a nice map of Lithuania with a lot of like bullet marks. And what is important about this book, it's not shocking in a way, it's very calm, it's very simple, but it says exactly how did it happen. This is the ultimate book about the Holocaust. Nobody can, Christoph Dickman, he studied Holocaust in Lithuania for 20 years, in 30 archives, in 7 countries, and in 7 languages, including Hebrew, Yiddish, English, Lithuanian, Russian, and of course, German and French. He knows everything. The only difficult thing for me when we decided to write this book, a simple book of talk, me asking simple questions and him answering, that Lithuanian historian said, don't do anything with this woman. She's scandalous, she's this, she's that, and it took him a lot of time to start trusting me. But he trusted me, and we published it, and this book will come in English in spring next year. Sad book, but this is the ultimate book about the Holocaust. And when I'm dead, which it will not happen next year or within 10 years or 15 years, when I'm dead, this book will be in every Lithuanian school, like an ultimate and important book about the Holocaust. So I'm gonna live in this book too. Thank you very much. I'm ready to answer your questions. And thank you for your attention.
Rūta, thank you so much for a very, very moving presentation and so many amazing comments. You're an incredible journalist, and thank you for being so brave and for doing your part to end the silence. I wanted to just ask you, so I know that your co-author, Zuroff said in 2010 that not anywhere else in, I think, the world, he was quoted as saying, has a country done so little to acknowledge their past or done so much to silence their past. Israel's president, Benjamin Netanyahu, visited Lithuania. I think it was quite controversial in 2018. Have you seen a shift in the government's position since the Prime Minister?
You know, you don't make me mad, okay? Mr. Netanyahu could come to Lithuania and, you know, shake hands with the Lithuanian counterparts and prime minister and presidency. You know what? Why don't you put more education into schools? Why don't you remove monuments for the murderers? He didn't do anything. Because Netanyahu, Israel needs Lithuania when some voting or happens in UN or whatever. He doesn't want to make friends angry. But somebody, his ancestors are from Shoah, from Lithuania. He owes it to the victims. And then our Lithuanian government, if the Jews are not asking for justice, if they are not asking to remove the monuments for the murderers, they won't do it.
Yeah, very sad. Rūta, you mentioned before the talk started that that you had spent 3 years in Israel, and part of that was just that you weren't comfortable in Lithuania. Did you ever feel that you were threatened, or that potentially your safety was at risk for what you were doing to expose these atrocities?
You know what? You know, when I said these things about the partisan leader, so our first president of Lithuania, first actual president, his name is Vytautas Landsbergis, wrote an op-ed in a popular portal telling that I should go to the forest and hang myself. And then there was internet full of was of my face with a loop, with an loop. And then you go on the street and they call you the woman who should be hanged. It's not funny. And my kids told me, Mom, you don't go out without us. You never go alone. I start ordering food home. So how much you can stay like this? How long? And I had, you know, found a lot of wonderful friends in Israel. But of course, I mean, like there was from the side of the government or Yad Vashem or whatever, I was never received nicely, only by private people. So by now, all my visas have expired and I cannot stay in Israel anymore. But I think in Lithuania, they almost forgot me. At least people are not spitting on the street into my face. It's not pleasant, believe me, when they spit.
Rūta, let me ask, there's a question here. Why did the Lithuanians act like that? So you mentioned in your talk that you found that there wasn't one documented incident where the Lithuanian soldiers were threatened by the German soldiers. Where does this, and I guess many of the audience may be smiling because, you know, where does this deep-rooted anti-Semitism from in Lithuania and in Eastern Europe?
You know, it is a big part of Catholic Church, like in Poland and Lithuania. Catholic Church is very anti-Semitic and has a long history of anti-Semitism and the silence of the Third Church. But also, you know, there were like a lot of unhappy circumstances came together. Not that Lithuanians were particularly bad or particularly anti-Semitic. There was a lot of patriotism because the people thought that Jews are bad for the country. That was Hitler's propaganda, which was multiplied and repeated by Lithuanian government, Lithuanian media. Jews are guilty for everything. And another thing was deep Lithuanian trauma, because in 40, Lithuania met Soviets with a lot of friendliness. And then Soviets started deporting thousands of Lithuanians, tens of thousands. And who is guilty? The Jews. If you ask any average Lithuanian who greeted Soviet army in 40, Jews, the Jews. So we put our own shame and our guilt on the Jews. And then when Lithuanians start doing, not so many pogroms, they forced rabbis, the old rabbis, to carry Stalin's portraits. What the rabbis have to do with Stalin or Lenin? But we had to give our guilt to them, and then it was easy to demonize them. But those guys who murdered Jews, most of them, they were not even anti-Semitic. They were indifferent, and they thought that they served in the country, So, and they were not monsters. I'm sad to say they were not monsters. I read the poetry that they were writing. But you know what, like, there are many interesting stories, like those people who have been murdering Jews for 4 years. One of them, after the war, he married and he got a child. And neighbors were very surprised that he couldn't hold a child in his hands. Every time he would take his little girl, the baby, he would start shaking and had to put her aside because he murdered so many babies. So something happened in their minds. But I am sure at the times of crisis, always we need a Jew. Yeah. We Christians, we need a Jew. And the times of crisis, do you know what my friends already told, that Soros invented Corona?
Yeah.
You heard it too. I heard it from my friend.
Yeah. And Rūta, you made the comment earlier. I see there's a comment from Selwyn. Why is Lithuania starting to acknowledge the existence of Jewish life by marking buildings and streets where Jewish people lived and worshipped? Is there a genuine effort today in 2020, even though there's a long way to go, to somehow just tell the story, even if it's just a beginning?
It is. Like, I think, what my and Efraim's book did a good thing, that people became aware that Jews were there, that this tragedy happened, and they start looking for the signs. If I go now to mass murder site now, I would see a flower. I would see a stone. I would see that people go. They are not so indifferent. Many of them still are, but many of them already, oh my goodness, it really happened. Look, if 70,000 books were sold before they removed the gout. 70,000 books, it means like 100,000 people read it. The book Our People was #1 bestseller for half a year, a book about the Holocaust. So it means they are people, but they are somewhere. They are not talking in public. They are not talking about the Jews or Holocaust. Still, if you say at the table the word Jew, or what the Holocaust, people freeze and change the subject. It is such a deep national trauma that until the next generation, or maybe even next generation, you don't talk about this in the company of other people.
I've got a question here from Gavin Rome. Can you ask why Israeli state civil organizations, Yad Vashem, are so unhelpful in breaking the silence in Lithuania? I think you alluded to it earlier.
It's a national, Israel has so many acute issues nowadays that who cares about what happened 8 years ago? Yeah. They need one vote from Lithuania. They need Lithuania to vote the way they want to vote. So why should make, like Israeli ambassador told me, we don't make our friends angry.
Yeah. So it's the balance of our heritage and politics. Rūta, let me ask you as we head towards the end of the session, there are amazing comments coming in. I see from Roz Bash, my cousin Shulamit Levy lived in Vilnius, and he actually wrote about, in his memoir, seeing Jewish bodies in the Dnieper River. He was a child at the time. How are these books and how is the story going to get to the younger generations of Lithuanians? This generation who are part of or complicit or who lived through it, maybe a generation that are lost. But how does your book and how does this story get traction with the generations of young Lithuanians coming?
Slowly but definitely, like Christoph Dickman says, you see that our book is going, by word of mouth. Somebody read it and said it is very strong. Somebody started reading and they couldn't. because it brings very dark thoughts about our own nation. This new book is not full of horrible facts, but it's a very sad book because it says how many people, and people who had choice, have chosen to do a bad thing, have chosen not necessarily to kill, but take for example, like a bed linen of someone who was just murdered. Like, it's very, very sad diagnosis about human nature, about the nature of our country, which we want to be. We want our nation to be a nation of heroes, a nation of victims. No, they were not. But I think Lithuanians are adult people, and they can look in their own history as adult people, not as kids who want to believe in Santa Claus. I am adult. I expect other people to be adult too. So next generation, like generation of my kids and their kids, they will be open. They won't be anti-Semitic, I don't believe. Unless really the Jews have invented Corona.
We're all hopeful. Lorraine is asking a question: when the Soviets occupied Lithuania after the war, did they establish courts to try any Nazi sympathizers as they did in East Germany and the Ukraine, for example?
Oh yes, those people who were imprisoned, sent to Siberia or shot dead were done only by Soviets. But that time, there was in all these interrogation protocols, there was not a word about the Jews. That was Soviet citizens, and those who shot them were bourgeois nationalists. So like identity of the victims was kind of hidden. But yes, they were caught, they were put to, a lot of them were shot. But after the independence, not a single person was punished.
Rūta, I'm going to just, there's a lot of questions about your book, so I just want to repeat the name of the book. The book is called Our People.
Yes.
Co-written by Rūta Vanagaitė. She's holding the book up, and Nazi-hunter Efraim Zuroff. I have checked if someone else posted up. It is available, or certainly listed as available, on loot.co.za. I'm not sure if they have in stock. But Rūta, what I am going to do is I will find out, and we'll post it up in Limud. They will have email addresses, and see if it is available in South Africa, and maybe we can help you to get rid of some of the 27,000 books sitting in your garage, because I think there would be really good demand. Everyone is asking about the book, so I'll do some research and see if it's available. If it's not.
It's available on Amazon. An English book is available on Amazon.
On Amazon as well, or potentially maybe we can get those books. What was, maybe just one last question? Roz Bass is asking: was the financial reparation due to the Jews by the Lithuanian government the cause of the denials and the silence? There was even a huge conflict between the Mishkadim and the Lubavitchers.
I didn't get the question about the.
So do you think that part of the reason for the denials and the silence was about the Lithuanian government having to pay reparations for their role?
No, I mean, who is paying? Lithuania is paying to Jewish community only for communal property, only. And Jewish community gets 3 million, I think 3 million euros each year for projects, but it's not a private property. If you go to little cities, little shtetls, you see a lot of Jewish houses. They are not being returned, and if you are Lithuanian citizen, you won't get back your property.
Okay, Rūta, we're about to end the session. I want to thank you so much. People are posting up the most amazing stories, sad, full of emotion. So thank you thank you for doing the work that you do. Thank you for telling the story, not only to us, but in your country of Lithuania and around the world, and for being as brave as you are. You're an amazing, amazing person. I think your story has resonated with all of us. We look forward to reading your book.
Thank you.
And may Hashem continue to bless the work that you do, and bless you and keep you and your family safe in Lithuania. Shavua Tov to everyone. We wish you a great week as we enter the month of Elul. Thank you to Limud for getting Rūta to present to us and to the South African Jewish Report, and wish you all a fantastic evening and enjoy your second sessions.
Thank you.
Take care and be safe, and thank you so much.
שבוע טוב לכולם.
Shavua tov.
שבוע טוב. Thank you, everybody.